Thinking Liberty, Episode 12.
Welcome to Thinking Liberty, the podcast that explores lifestyles of freedom-minded individuals. Join us as we discuss work, hobbies, health, learning, and more while living a travel-orientated lifestyle. Be curious, be open, be inspired, be free. And now, here are your hosts, Zach and Sarah Varnell.
Hey everybody, welcome to Thinking Liberty Episode 12. We're here in our mobile studio in Niantic, Connecticut. So, I'm Zach.
And I'm Sarah, and this is my first visit to Connecticut, and I think, Zach, it's your first visit as well, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so we're both looking forward to it. We're planning, I think we've mentioned before, we're doing a little New England tour, because I think Zach's been to a couple states, and I've been to Massachusetts for work, but that's really been it. It's only been for work purposes. So we're looking forward to getting out and exploring, checking out some of the beaches, maybe checking out a couple of breweries as well. So we're really looking forward to having a full weekend coming up here soon, and just really getting out and seeing what Connecticut has to offer before we head off to another state.
Yeah, same here. I've been to Vermont and New Hampshire, and they were both great, but all the times I've been there, I've had work to do. It's been for business trips, and I've been either alone or just with coworkers. So this will be a nice time to actually spend some time up here. We're planning on basically spending the whole summer until it gets too cold and we need to head back.
Or we get kicked out because the parks up here close pretty early in the year.
Yeah, we were trying to book one park in northern New Hampshire, and they kind of treated me like I was crazy for wanting to book those dates, so I didn't, because I was a little bit afraid that we would be in 10 feet of snow or something.
I mean, it's
so
in October.
I think we're going to play that one by ear.
Yeah, it's in October. I think we'll be fine, but we're going to wait until we get into Maine and kind of see what the temperatures are like. I mean, we're both used to North Georgia weather in October. You know, it can be cold, but at the same time, you can also have days where it's 70 or 80 degrees. So
yes,
we'll
even in
see
December and January, we'll have days where it's in the 70s and super nice in Georgia and Tennessee. But I'm really not sure what to expect up here. So far, I know here in Connecticut, the weather's been a lot milder, and this has been nice, but I'm not sure really when it's going to start getting cold and when it's going to chase us back down south.
Yeah, so I guess you could say we're northern weather newbies, but I think it'll be a fun trip, and we're really looking forward to spending the next couple of months here.
So we've only had a few days so far here in Connecticut, and we've been working a little bit, but we've been trying to get out in the evenings and, see what's around us here in Niantic and take some scenic drives and check out some little shops and stuff. And so far, I think my favorite has been the Book Barn that we went to yesterday. And it was just great. I made an Instagram post about it, about all the things that they had here. It was like, they had, of course, books. They also had cats roaming around, and they had a guide to spotting the cats, all their names and their personalities.
And there were goats, I think.
Yeah, they had goats, and also a guide for the goats about whether or not they would let you pet them and what they could eat. They had a scavenger hunt. I saw they had, kids' toys everywhere. Like, kids could ride little tricycles and, play school cars and stuff around. There were people riding their bikes through, people playing basketball, chess. They had all sorts of gardens, koi pond. They had a fairy garden. There's all sorts of stuff. I can't even remember everything off the top of my head because they had so much going on at once.
Yeah, I mean, the Book Barn was great. It was great for me because I was able to fill up a bag full of books before Zach noticed what was going on and told me to tone it down a little bit. I'd say it was a successful trip.
There were a ton of books to the point where they have, I think, 4 locations, and they didn't even have each genre of book at each location. Like, one location would be dedicated to just certain things because they have so much. And for me, that was almost a little overwhelming. I didn't really find anything that I wanted to buy because I think the organization of it all was a little different than how my mind works. But I still enjoyed walking around and just taking it all in and looking at all the crazy stuff they had to offer and just the great atmosphere.
Yeah, the first location we went to is their largest location. So they had the majority of genres there, and it was organized a little bit differently. But it was great for me because I just walked around, and I think I left with like 10 books, and most of them are from different genres completely. So, it'll be a nice little taste of reading for me and not, getting stuck in one genre. Usually when I go to a bookstore, I end up going to the one section and then just stay there the whole time. But the way they had this laid out, it was really cool to walk around and explore and see what was there. So that was a lot of fun. And then Zach was like, well, there's another location. It's like 2 minutes down the road. And that's where they have comic books and fantasy. And I was like, well, we're going there too. Yeah. So it was really fun.
And it's nice that they're used books too, because living in an RV, we don't have to, commit a lot of money towards these books, and we're not going to feel too bad if we pass them on to somebody else afterwards. And we're not going to have too much clutter laying around after, Sarah finishes each book.
Yeah, one of the fun things that I've been doing is trading out books with my mom every time I go home. So she'll give me a couple books to read or books recommendations to read, and I'll pass off any books to her that I've been reading and collecting, and, we'll go to yard sales or garage sales, and sometimes I'll pick up a book or two there too. So,
yeah, other than that, we've been trying to drive around, and Connecticut's very beautiful. We've seen some of their beaches, which the definition of beach here is a little bit different from what we can tell than what we're used to in maybe Florida or Georgia, where it'll be a small strip of sand where I'm pretty sure that they put the sand there themselves, but it's still really pretty looking out over the water. And I'm sure there are some actual legitimate beaches, which I think we're going to check out this weekend.
Yeah, but it's really peaceful here. Some of the people that we've met have been really friendly in just, asking us like what we're doing and what our story is, and that's been kind of cool. And I mean, we went to this really relaxed little seafood place where we were able to sit on the porch, and we brought Ollie, and that was pretty nice.
It was cool. We split a big fisherman's platter where we were able to try clam strips for the first time, and from what I understand, there's sort of a holy war between clam strips and whole clam. But we tried the strips because we're newbies, and the whole one scared us a little bit. But I think we're definitely working our way into, trying more seafood up here, especially in New England, where we know we're getting the best of the best a lot of times. We're looking forward to getting some good crab, because we really love crab and try to eat that whenever we're close to the ocean. And then we're really looking forward to New England lobster, so that'll be great whenever we get some good lobster.
Another thing that we've done so far is we went to this place. It was kind of funny. We were looking up dog parks because we really wanted to get Ollie out and about, and not all of the places that are near us are dog friendly. So we were trying to find some place particular that we could take him. So we drive a little ways out, and then we park, and supposedly we're at a dog park, but I don't see any signs for it, and there's really no other cars or other people out there. So we get out and we start walking, and it's just this trail around a lake. So I think it was just mislabeled on Google, but I'm glad it was, because it was just this really cool little walk that we were able to take. And it turns out that there's a couple of beavers that live in this lake. And so we got to see them swimming around and jumping around and playing. And it was just really cool and peaceful, and a nice little break from where our RV park is.
Yeah, we weren't even really sure at first that there were beavers there, but we highly suspected it because we kept on seeing all these trees that looked like, they had been felled with some sort of weird tool, that we hadn't seen before. And we're pretty sure that's a beaver, but why are they just leaving the trees there? Where we're from, I don't know if there were any beavers. We're not exactly experts. But I think, they were just gnawing down trees, I guess, to dull their teeth or whatever. So there were felled trees everywhere, and I think we saw a little beaver dam too, even though it really wasn't damming anything up. It was just kind of their home.
It's just their little home, yeah. But it was really cool because we would hear something like jumping in the water, and we'd turn around to look, and we'd miss it. And then I guess they got used to our presence and just started swimming around, and it was really cool.
Yeah, so I guess that's it for our update for Connecticut, and I'm sure we'll have more for you next week when we've experienced some more this weekend and next week. But our guest for this week is Tanner Morrison, who's going to talk to us about another one of our favorite destinations, which is Chattanooga, Tennessee. And for us, I guess it's not really too much of a destination since we're basically from the Chattanooga area. But since we've been doing the RV, we really do look forward to getting back into town and experiencing it and seeing what's changed since we've left. So he's an expert on Chattanooga, and he's gonna walk us through what he thinks the best things to do and see and partake in Chattanooga are.
Yeah, he was a really cool guy, really cool to talk to, and he has some great suggestions and thoughts on Chattanooga. So I thought it was a very interesting interview, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We really enjoyed having Tanner on the show. He was really interesting to talk to. It was a pretty fun episode for us to do, and we're definitely looking forward to going back to Chattanooga and hopefully hanging out with him when we're back in town. He actually has his own podcast and blog related to brewing in Chattanooga. It's brewchat.com. And one of his most recent episodes, they actually touch on Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 1. So I haven't listened to that one yet, but I'm going to this week because it seems really cool and interesting. So definitely check that out if you have the time. But before we give too many details about what we talked about and about Tanner, let's just go ahead and go straight into the interview.
All right, so Tanner, welcome to the show.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, so we wanted to have you on to talk about Chattanooga, Tennessee. We've had a few episodes like this where Sarah and I have talked about cities that we really love, and we've had other people on to talk about it and cheerlead for the city. And, you know, from what we know about you, you're a huge cheerleader for Chattanooga, and you really know your stuff, and you're big into, it seems, the beer scene and craft brew scene and things like that in Chattanooga. So we want to hear all about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Can you start off by telling us, maybe what your pitch for Chattanooga would be? If maybe somebody's never considered visiting the city before, what would you say to convince them?
Well, you mentioned that I am a pretty big proponent of Chattanooga, but if you live here, that's kind of the big thing is, we've got a huge amount of community support here, and it kind of goes a little bit of both ways. Not to say we don't like outsiders, because we do. We love people moving here, but it's also kind of, we like it as a little secret. But I don't know, as far as a pitch to Chattanooga, if you like good food, if you like the outdoors, you like nice people, and you don't like douchebags, come to Chattanooga, because all in all, there's a good amount of good people here. We've got great outdoors, and we've got a gorgeous river that goes right downtown, and all of our big festivals are kind of based around that river. And, I'll hold my opinions to myself about some of those festivals, but we've got Southern Brewers Fest coming up, which is a great festival. It's, and I'm not just saying this because it's a beer festival, but they've got a bunch of local bands down there, and not just, they've got local Chattanooga bands, but they've also got just local kind of southeastern bands that come down there, and they've got beer going on way longer than it should be legally allowed. But yeah, it's a great time, and we've got a ton of great little festivals like that, like the Chattanooga Sunday Market is a great thing, and yeah, mm-hmm. It's great. I've been to, and yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say, that's one thing I've noticed about Chattanooga. Almost nobody is like, meh, I'm from Chattanooga. Like, they love it. There's almost
we're very
everybody
proud.
who lives there becomes an advocate.
We are very, very proud people.
Yeah, and I always love returning home and getting out to Chattanooga and seeing some of the restaurants and some of the new places that are always popping up too. I mean, and like you said, the people are pretty friendly. For the most part, everyone's happy, smiling, waving. People are happy to help give you directions if you get lost, or, the servers are always happy to offer recommendations and just chat with you and make you feel comfortable and relaxed. And it's always a great experience.
Oh yeah, people are incredibly nice here. And it's like, it leads to some people being a little naive, because we'll get, somebody just in town that runs amok every once in a while, but, you've got people like that everywhere, so.
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, you travel enough and you're going to meet some people that, you'd rather not, but definitely, Chattanooga, most people are pretty friendly. So tell us a little bit about yourself, some of your hobbies and interests, and, how you really get involved in the Chattanooga area.
Well, I am a photographer slash videographer slash, I guess, just media professional. There's, I kind of do a little bit of everything, jack of all trades, master of none. And I do Brew Chatt, which is a local Chattanooga podcast. It's also got web content and video content as well. But we've got a weekly podcast that comes out, and it's all about craft beer, just in general, but also about local Chattanooga happenings and just good things going on in town. And then the last half of the show, we usually tie it into some sort of movie because we do a show down at the Chattanooga Film Festival, and then we do other live shows around town periodically. And so, yeah, I'm a huge proponent of Chattanooga, and one of my big things here is bringing new media to town and really helping facilitate that, because growing up here, there wasn't a whole lot, and not just because I wasn't 21, but there just wasn't a whole lot to do as a kid. And so if I can in any way bring new media to town, because that's something I know that kids growing up now are only going to deal more and more with. There's some statistic where, in the 70s and 80s, people dealt with about 8 hours of media a day, and now it's up to 16 or 17. So it's just something we're getting inundated with. And if I can help that in Chattanooga and help facilitate that and the education of that, and there's things going on like Chattanooga's great at having little community projects. They've got a brand new recording studio they just set up at our library. And I know you're thinking, right, like, what's a recording studio doing at the library? Books. But no, they've set up an entire recording studio down there. I mean, state of the art. It's the nicest recording studio in town. And they're offering it free of charge, if you've got a library card, I'm assuming. And their whole goal is to get artists in there and teach kids about sound engineering and audio engineering and how to make music and things like that. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
We have a couple nephews and a niece in that area. We should definitely make sure they're aware of that, because that's definitely something they would be interested in checking out. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
So when it comes to outdoor activities like hiking, biking, I know Chattanooga is great, but are you familiar with any like specifics that you could recommend for, maybe trails to hike or paths to bike along in the city?
Yeah, I'll go with my number one just because it's, I don't think anybody's going to track me down on here, even though Chattanooga is kind of a small city. But it's pretty close to my house, actually. It's called Stringer's Ridge. And it's right in North Chattanooga. And there's a big ridge that runs through there, obviously why it's called that. But they've got trails heading up from different sides of it. And, I mean, I don't know how many miles of trail there is up in there. But, I mean, I know I've spent several hours and I've still not explored it all. And it also ties into the biking, even though I don't do a lot of cycling, but they've got some bike trails up there and a pump track. If you're into BMX and things like that, you can do some little jumps and whatnot. But
so it's got a little something for everyone.
Yeah. And that's just my personal hiking favorite just because it's convenient for me and I'll go up there and trail run and whatnot. But there's plenty of places around town. There's a place out towards, if you head towards Suck Creek, which is the mountain pass, if you will, Suck Creek Mountain. There's a trail up there called Middle Creek. And some people some of my friends may chew me out over this for kind of revealing this little secret, but I think the jig's up on it as of like 3 years ago. But yeah, it's where the two mountain ranges sort of meet, Signal Mountain and Suck Creek Mountain. They actually meet, and it's got this little valley down through there with a big creek. And I mean, there's boulders in there the size of houses. It's massive, and it's definitely not hiking for the faint of heart. It's very tough terrain and very dangerous. So if you're not used to hiking, don't choose that as your first hike. But you go up in there, if you hike far enough, there's a nice little swimming hole. There's all sorts of big rocks for you to get on, and depending on if it's just rain, sometimes you can't even get up in there. But then there's also, if you can manage to rent a kayak or one of the paddle boards that seem to be so hip in town now and just get out on the river, you can go to, there's Williams Island, which I don't want to suggest that. I will anyway, but it may actually be private property. I'm not sure. But I've
always wondered that myself. I don't think I've ever read anywhere officially that it's private property, but yeah, I've kind of always wondered whether you're allowed to go there too.
Yeah, I've gone on it a few times. I've kayaked out to it, and there's cows on it. There's like old farm equipment. As far as I can tell, no people, but it was kind of creepy and eerie in that way. But it's a huge island.
I bet you got some good photographs though.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then another good island to go to, which is real close to downtown, is McClellan Island. It's right under Veterans Bridge right there.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, my brother and I went to that once in a kayak, and we saw, the Boy Scout shelters and stuff like that there. But it was pretty neat to walk around that and be the only people on the island.
Yeah, it's kind of got it's got a creepiness about it.
So those are good recommendations. I like that because I know Stringer's Ridge is really good for just about anybody of any skill level. Like you can get out there and just with like maybe a, small hike, you're going to see big, sweeping skylines of the city, and then you can get out more and see, nature and trails and stuff like that. Then the other one that you mentioned, which we'll definitely have to check out in Suck Creek, sounded like it's more on the difficult side. So
Yeah, there's that one, and there's one more it's technically not in Chattanooga, but I guess none of the hiking technically is in Chattanooga. But it's out towards Jasper and Kimball, Tennessee, and you go over the aforementioned Suck Creek, and you go over there, and it's called the Fiery Gizzard Trail, and there's a waterfall called Foster Falls at the bottom of it, and the falls is actually.
I actually added that to my list of places to go to just yesterday. I saw an article about it and I was like, yep,
Oh,
going
it's
there next
great.
time we're home.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite spots.
Cool.
It's not hard to get to, but there's definitely, if you follow the trails around, it gets pretty treacherous. And you could definitely get lost up in there if you weren't being too careful. But if you're just headed up there to go to the falls, it's a pretty simple hike. I mean, you will get winded on the way back up, but it's a pretty good hike.
So, what about restaurants and places to drink and things like that? What would be maybe some of your top recommendations in Chattanooga for somebody who would just be visiting for maybe the span of a weekend?
Oh, okay. How long does this show go? But
Yeah, no, there's plenty of good food in Chattanooga, so it's maybe an impossible task for you to narrow it down. But
yeah, there are tons. Because if you're not from here, you may not know, but Chattanooga has like 3 or 4 food dynasties of just like these families or groups of people that own these restaurants. So, and it's kind of a foodie town. We have some incredible food here, but I'll just kind of pair it here. I'll give a restaurant, and then I'll give an alcohol recommendation.
That's perfect.
But the first one I would say is I'm part Italian, so I'll go with Il Primo. It's an Italian restaurant here on the North Shore. It's actually where Green Life used to be. If you remember that, like way back in the day before it was Whole Foods.
yeah.
But it's down there. They've got some really good Italian food, or Elia's is pretty good. It's on the south side. But then alcohol-wise, and then I kind of like that. I'll keep it to the south and North Shore here. So alcohol-wise, on the south side, you've got Hutton & Smith. As a brewery, that's my personal favorite beer in town that's being made. They started with maybe, I think it was 8 or 9 taps, and they're up to 20 right now, and they just opened a brand new brewing facility over on Riverside. And it's, they've got 3 overhead
I think
cranes.
we cut out for a second.
Oh, sorry, Hutton & Smith. And maybe I just said it too fast for the internet to handle.
You need multi-gigabit speed. Just being the fastest internet in Chattanooga isn't enough.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, and that's a huge thing I forgot to even mention is, we do have the fastest internet. I believe it's not the fastest in the world anymore, but I do think it still is the fastest in the nation.
Yeah, and one of the first to have fiber, too. I know, like, everybody's crazy about Google Fiber now, but Chattanooga had it first. So.
Oh, yeah, and we will definitely toot that horn. Because it's a fast horn to toot. But, yeah, so back to booze. Yeah, so we've got Hutton & Smith. Great place, great beer. They don't serve food, though. You're free to bring any food that you have with you in there. But they're just a brewery. Best beer in town, though. And then also on the south side, you've got Odd Story, which just opened up. It's another brewery that opened up down there. And they've got, snacks and whatnot, but still no real food. It's, again, a brewery. They're pretty good. And then back to, let's get some south side food. If you're just looking for an ale house, maybe Feed Tabling Company. They've got a whole system where you can rack up beers. And they've got something ridiculous like 40 taps or something, and it's always changing out. So you can go down there, get a new beer every time, and then slowly rack up points on this list and get a t-shirt or something. I don't know. But back to North Shore for a minute. Is over here you've got Brew House. And that's combining the food and the booze right there. That's one of my personal favorite places to go in town. Brew Chat, my podcast, actually, we interviewed the mayor there back at the beginning of May. The Mayor Andy Burke of Chattanooga. But yeah, so they've got hamburgers, all sorts. It's kind of a German fusion, and it's a smaller restaurant, so try not to go at peak times if you're wanting a little quieter atmosphere. But they've got a nice beer garden, they've got a nice patio, and then they've got a good selection of taps of all sorts of different beers. They don't have a lot of taps, but they try to have every style of beer on tap of a certain point, different breweries at any given time. So that's kind of their shtick.
Cool. And then speaking of, do you have any specific recommendations on beers to try that are local to Chattanooga?
Oh, local. God. I drink a lot of beers. You got to understand that.
It's another one like asking what the best restaurant is. There's so many to choose from.
Yeah, let me think. Let's see. Back to Hutton and Smith. They've got I can't remember all the fancy names they have because they are kind of sort of based on climbing and geology themed stuff. So some of their names are geological and climbing stuff, and I'm not a climber, nor am I a geologist. So I'm kind of pissed out of luck on some of those terms, so I have a trouble time remembering them there. But I think it was the Rope Gun Rye.
That's a really cool idea, though, to have like super themed beers and super, themed locations like that.
Oh, yeah, that's actually where their name came from. If Joel and Melanie, if you hear this, I'm not trying to be the spokesperson for you all, but I'll take like a growler from you. But yeah, Hutton and Smith, they're actually Melanie, who it's a couple that owns it. Melanie she was a geologist, and then Joel's a climber. And so I guess they just fused together. They've got a ton of brewing experience between the two of them. And then they just decided to move here and open up a brewery, the best brewery we have. And they're not paying me to say this by any means.
No, it's great. I mean, the places you've listed, I think we've only been to a couple of them. So I'm definitely taking notes to plan out our next weekend trip there.
Yeah. And when you guys come through, you'll have to hit me up and come on my show. And we'll grab some beers. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome. Yeah.
But, yeah, I'm trying to think. There was one more. Oh, yeah, I wanted to mention barbecue-wise. Because I love me some barbecue.
I think that's mandatory for our show, actually. When we started just like recording and, episode 0, 1, 2, 3, we saw that we started talking about barbecue on every episode, whether we planned to or not. So...
Yeah, we absolutely did not plan it, but it's just one of those things. We get into a new city and we're like, all right, so what type of barbecue do they have here? Because, so many places, they do it differently in each city, each state. So, yeah, it's definitely been a pretty common
thing. Oh, yeah,
we've
got this place here called Chatterbox Cafe. And it's on South Market, like almost as far South Market Street as you can go without going onto the interstate. And it's right there on the right across from the Nissan dealership. That's as best directions as I could give you right now.
So, yeah, very South Market. Okay.
But, oh my God. This barbecue is amazing. Utterly amazing.
So what type of barbecue do they do? Is it very Tennessee style, or are they kind of combine different flavors and styles from different places?
Well, Sarah, I run a beer podcast, not a barbecue podcast, so I could not tell you that. But I couldn't tell you, honestly. The guy that runs it, Brandon, he takes an extreme amount of pride in his food. And he's got a whole system he's trying to get going, like sort of a nonprofit sort of side thing he's got going where he takes youths that may have fallen into selling drugs or something, and then they got caught and put in juvie, and he's trying to get some sort of rehab system going, and then he has them help him work and like learn about business and learn about growing your food, because he's completely farm to table on everything he makes. Like the cheese that goes into his macaroni, I've looked those cows in the eyes.
Oh my goodness.
And like, it's crazy. Everything he has there is farm to table and is the best barbecue you will have in town. And he's not even really
Well,
he's
I guess that's enough for me. We'll just definitely have to check it out when we're in
yeah,
there.
you have to. I mean, he's not even been around that long. He moved down here from Louisville, and or it was maybe Lexington, I'm not sure, but moved down here and just decided what he wanted to do was make food for people, and it's amazing, and he loves what he does. And when you love what you do, other people can tell.
And you have to be grateful for those people that decide that what they want to do is make good food for other people, because we have definitely enjoyed that on
Oh,
our
yeah.
travels.
So we've talked about beer and barbecue, but for maybe some of the more people who want something more polished, is there some good brunch in the area? Because I know some people are all about brunch. Do you have anything like breakfast brunch wise to suggest?
Yeah. There was a time in my life that I was all about the brunch when I first discovered it. It was like discovering a newly found pot of gold for me. But my first one, I'll go with my staple. I went there. It's been around a bit, so if you're from Chattanooga, you've definitely been there, more than likely. But Food Works, in my opinion, the restaurant itself, if you go during the week, it's not bad, but they shine on Sundays for their brunch. But it's at the point now where you kind of have to have a reservation. It's kind of one of the first places that's arisen where you have to have a reservation at certain times, like just naturally and not just out of pretension. But I would say there first off, but then the aforementioned Brew Chat, or not Brew Chat, that's my deal, but Brew House.
Yeah, go ahead and get as many plugs in there as you want, though. Brew chat.
Oh yeah, I'll do it.
Brew chat.
But yeah, Brew House. They only do their brunch on Saturday and Sundays. They don't do it anytime during the week, but it's fantastic. It's the same German fusion stuff, but you can get stuff like I don't remember what they call it, but it's like a bowl with some gravy and a biscuit, but it's a schnitzel biscuit. And it's little German fusion things like that. It's very good. And regardless of what I have to say about this place, because I'm convinced that this bar has it out for me.
Uh-oh.
But the Flying Squirrel, their food's amazing. And I gag a little bit at this just because this bar I have a bad experience. It's stories for another time, but they have it out for me. I'm convinced, and I've done nothing. But their food's amazing.
Yeah, you'll definitely have to tell us those stories when we meet up, and we can decide if they're appropriate for the podcast or not.
Well, you can go back and listen to my show. I'm nothing's inappropriate on there, so yeah, I get into it in depth on there. But yeah, brunch is a big thing to me. There's also Feed that I mentioned before. They've got a good brunch, and the neat thing about Feed Table and Company is they've got a restaurant side. I guess that's the table company. And then they've got a bar side that is very much a bar, but it's not a bar in the sense of it's not a bar, like a nasty bar. It's still nice to go eat there. And they've got a really nice patio connected to it where, I don't know if you guys have heard of him, but Danimal Penson of Danimal Planet, he's a local musician, but he plays there every Sunday. And he's got a huge following there. And on top of that, Feed itself, their head chef, Charlie Loomis, I can't remember exactly which food show it was, but he was featured on Top Chef or something like that, one of the final contestants. And he's their head chef down there. So you can guarantee that the food's delicious.
So do you think there is anything that people need to know about Chattanooga before they visit? Maybe something that'll make their trip go a little bit smoother if they are aware of?
Yeah, don't go up the Ridge Cut at 5 o'clock ever. You can come down it, it's usually okay, but don't go up it. Let me think here. Don't get those ice drinks at the Big Chill unless you're really planning to get trashed.
Oh my gosh, no.
And
yeah, make it like your last stop before
yeah,
you go
that's
home if
definitely
you
your
have to go
last
there.
stop. And make sure you've got some food in you if you're going to get one of those ice drinks at the Big Chill. Seriously, I run a beer podcast, but I'm all about responsibly drinking. Christ, they need to put some of those things on lock. It's rough.
I think they just want to see how far they can push it. Like I think they enjoy seeing people stumble out of there miserably. I think that's
Well,
their
it just
life
makes
goal,
no sense
maybe.
to me because you get somebody drunk enough, they're not going to be able to pay you. And they're definitely not going to be able to pay you if they throw you out of the bar.
That's very true. Yeah.
So how would you say that Chattanooga is changing, and maybe how has it changed over the years since you've lived there? And do you like, maybe the direction it's going or not?
Overall, I mean, I'll address that first. I think I like the direction it's going. My one problem is I've got kind of a fear, I guess, an anxiety about it growing. Is I lived in Nashville for a little bit, and I was there when Nashville, like, I mean, Nashville's always been a bigger city than Chattanooga, but I was there like almost to the day I remember it happening, of it just becoming strange and like way too popular, or I don't know quite what it was, and I don't want to be the guy that's like, oh, I got too mainstream, but it got to a point where if you went out and you didn't look like you were a member of the Kings of Leon, then like whatever, and I'm not big into that superficiality and things like that. And that's one thing I like about Chattanooga is we still have, I mean, that definitely exists wherever you go, but all in all, we're pretty humble here. We're a pretty good type of folk. And I just don't want a bunch of tools moving into our toolbox.
Yeah, I definitely get where you're coming from. I mean, I used to be the person who would always feel comfortable going out in jeans and just a band t-shirt or whatever, but I won't name names, but there are a couple of bars in Chattanooga there I've noticed that if you're not dressed up and looking like you belong in a band, you're kind of out of place in the sore thumb sticking out.
Well, and to harken back what I, alluded to at the Flying Squirrel, that's what one of those situations got to, was a superficial situation where somebody I was with was not dressed properly. And, yeah.
Yeah, so I wasn't going to name names, but actually that was what I was thinking of because, I mean, I definitely like going there and I definitely like the food and they've got a great beer selection and I've always enjoyed my visits there. But yeah, I did feel like one time I was not dressed 100% how they wanted
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
to be
I'll
dressed.
totally name names. And Flying Squirrel, if you're put her naming names on me, I'll take it. I don't care.
Yeah, and you mentioned at the beginning of the show that, Chattanooga is not a place where you don't welcome people to move to it or welcome outsiders. Because I know there are cities like that, and I can't stand that sort of attitude where it's like, oh, we're good, don't move here, we don't want you, or we don't want you visiting. But I think, maybe there are some of that element in Chattanooga, but overall, people are very friendly.
I think so long as you're a nice person and you just want to visit and experience the culture and you're really looking to have a good time and drink some good beers and hang out with some good friends and go hiking or kayaking on the river and you really just want to enjoy what Chattanooga has to offer and take Chattanooga for what it is, people love you and people want you there. But it's when you come in and you expect Chattanooga to be something that it's not, or you try to push Chattanooga to be something that it's not, that's when people are kind of like, all right, stop coming, stop visiting.
Well, and one of my little anxieties in the back of my mind about Chattanooga is right now, and there's nothing wrong with this, but and I'm definitely not taking a jab at you all who are literally doing what I'm about to say. But you've got, I mean, not literally, but you've got a bunch of people that will just go to a city and they'll live there for like a year, let that apartment lease run out, and then they'll move to another city, live there for a year, and let that apartment, or they'll move there until it becomes uncool to live there. Or, for whatever reason, and I'm into Chattanooga for the long haul. Like, I would go to New York or LA and live there like that. Those, to me, are kind of, cities to do that with. But Chattanooga's my home. It's special to me. Like, if you're going to move here because you love it. And don't move here because it's the trendy thing to do. Because there's a lot of things about Chattanooga that's not too great. Like, there's a bunch of idiots here still. Like, there really is. We've got a bunch of progressive, really chill people, but we also have, we have some idiots that are just going to do some stupid stuff.
Yeah, I definitely think you can say that for a lot of cities too, though. But I think overall, Chattanooga is a great place to be, but it is cool that there are people like you out there that, are super passionate about their city and super passionate about wanting to make it a better place. And yeah, like you said, in it for the long haul.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, nobody wants somebody to move to their town just because that was kind of my problem with Nashville that I saw, and I wasn't able to address it to myself until later, and I was like, that's why that irritated me. Because they didn't actually want to be there. It's the same concept. If you move to a town that you don't actually want to be in, it's the same thing as going to a restaurant just to be seen. Like the flying squirrel,
Yeah, so if there's one thing to take from this, it's screw the flying squirrel, apparently.
Yeah, not from you guys' end. That is not Thinking Liberty. That is Tanner Morrison from Brew Chat, and I will gladly.
I mean, I don't know anything about the flying squirrel. I'll jump on board that. I don't care.
Oh my gosh. We're going to get a permanent ban.
Oh, well.
That's what's going to happen.
We'll hang out with Tanner. It's fine.
Hey, I already am banned, so they can't do anything else.
All right, so let's end on a positive note. Tell us all about Brew Chat and anything else you have going on, maybe Chattanooga related or just whatever you are up to right now.
Well, Brew Chat is it started as a web series, still is a web series, but it sort of evolved into a podcast. And now we cover any beer event in town, any sort of big beer event that's going on. We're there, usually interviewing people and putting up videos about it later, sometimes live streaming. And then, and usually our videos, I like to take, I was a film guy and did electronic media production and all that. I've been freelancing for about 10 years or so. And so I make it a little film flary. I don't just, it's not a news story. I like to put some flair to it a little bit and make it a little fun. But then we've got the podcast each week that, where we sometimes interview beer industry professionals or brewers or so-and-so. We've got a couple guest hosts that are home brewers. And then we also, we're home brewers ourselves, me and my team. So we brew and teach about that process as well. And then, yeah, we're just a bunch of fun guys. I started it on the principle. I'm the founder, creator, janitor, sound guy, host, you name it. And I started it just because I like good people, I like good beer, and I like Chattanooga. I think it's a great city, and we needed something like this. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. It sounds super interesting, and I'm definitely looking forward to checking it out and listening to some episodes. I mean, that's another thing that Zach and I love to do is when we travel, taste the local brews and see what's going on in the beer community there. And we drink a lot of beers, too. And don't tell our parents, but that's what we do. And yeah, so I'm definitely interested in learning more about the Chattanooga beer scene from you.
Awesome. Yeah, I would love to have you guys on and maybe take you guys out, do like a collaboration podcast or video or something sometimes when you guys come to town.
That sounds really fun. Yeah. But I do actually have one more thing because, you were talking about building communities up and building cities out and living somewhere because you want to live there. So for people who might be thinking about moving to Chattanooga and not just visiting, or for people who visit and then end up falling in love with it, if they move and they want to get more involved in community projects or involved in improving the city, where would they start and how would they get more hands-on?
I don't know. That's a very good question. Just from my own experience, I was mentioning earlier about how new media and educating people on new media and things like that, that's what I'm interested in, especially working with kids and educating them. And, kids need to know what propaganda is. You know what I mean? So I'm really interested in that. The route I took was just sort of being in media that sort of got that door open. It just kind of opened one day for me. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I can teach some kids a thing or two. But as far as moving to the city, I would say a good place to start would probably be your library, or our library here downtown specifically. And the reason is they've got a whole floor. They host all these classes up there on, I believe it's the 4th floor. It's the top floor. It's the 4th or 5th floor. It's whichever one is at the top. And you go up to the top floor. They've got they've got an area where you can learn about printmaking and actually do printmaking and make a t-shirt or make some linoleum relief prints if you want, or you can go over here and you can fiddle around with clay and learn about clay. And I'm not saying there's somebody up there to teach you necessarily. It's a very self-teaching sort of process they've got, but I think that's cool because that's how I learn about things, is just fiddling around with stuff. And they've got an area with a 3D printer that you can go and print stuff. And if you've got a library card, you can access this. And they'll host, if you don't know how to use this stuff, they'll host little evening classes periodically where you can go in there and somebody will teach you about, sewing or whatever, this and that. And that's how I got involved with, I do some work with CFC, which is our soccer team, which kicks a little bit of ass. I'm sorry if I can't swear, but it's that important because they do. I do a little bit of work with them, and that's how I sort of got involved with them a little bit, and it goes back and forth. Like, I don't know, once you start getting involved with people down here, it sort of spreads because we're a city, but with a town mindset, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with that.
Like, I like the fact that, I had the mayor on my show, and it took no more effort than me sending the guy an email.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
And to me, that's awesome. And I like that I can drive down the street and there's people I see and I can wave at them. But at the same time, we've got cool stuff like a city. Like, we just opened up, to add at the last minute here to things, to do in Chattanooga, is they just redid Station Street down by the Choo Choo, in between the Choo Choo and the Terminal Brew House. And they put this, the Comedy Catch moved over there, and then there's a new restaurant called Stir that's about 2 years old. Great cocktails. But they've just put in the Songbirds Guitar Museum, which is the largest, I think it's the largest historical guitar museum in the world.
Yeah, we saw that when we were there last, but we didn't have a chance to go in. But we'll definitely have to make that a priority for next visit.
Yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, just back to your question though, the thing in Chattanooga about getting involved with community projects is there's community gardens and little things like that you can look up. But I've found a ton just from sort of networking and just talking to people, because people love their community here so much that I've never seen that in another city I've lived in, of just where, it is kind of a circle jerk, but it's a really good circle jerk. And people love their city here, and just asking around will usually get you pointed in the right direction, regardless of whatever it is you're wanting to actually do.
Yeah, and like we touched on before, people in Chattanooga are pretty welcoming and friendly, and if you're nice to them, they'll be nice back, and, people want to help their city and they want to help others. So yeah, if you're looking to get involved, just, start talking to people. Yeah, it's a good
Yeah, and for example, I've got a buddy that he was interested in doing stagehand work. Getting on the trusses, hanging the lights and whatnot. He literally went to the Tivoli and just asked them. And he had a job. And then another friend of mine did that with Chattanooga Brewing Company and just went down there. He was like, hey, can I come and learn how to brew? And they let him come in, and he learned how to brew, and then he had a job as one of their brewers for a good while.
That's awesome.
We're a very friendly community, and we do not bite.
All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed that interview with Tanner, and I hope you got something out of it, and that you'll all be able to visit Chattanooga sometime, or, if you're local to the area, maybe check out some of the things that he suggested that maybe you haven't done before. Remember to check out Tanner's podcast and blog and all the good stuff over there at brewchat.com. That's brew, CHATT.com. And then also be sure to give him a like on Facebook and Twitter, all that good stuff. And while you're at it, do the same for us. Give us a like on Facebook, a follow on Twitter. And we are Listen TL on there, or you can just search Thinking Liberty and you'll probably find us that way.
Yeah, and we are always looking for feedback too. So if you have any questions that you would have liked for us to cover, or questions that you would like for us to cover in the future, or you have comments about previous episodes, definitely let us know. We'd love to hear from you guys.
And there was a lot dropped on this episode, a lot of restaurants and hiking trails and all sorts of good stuff like that. So be sure to check out the show notes page at thinkingliberty.com/12 for all the links and resources of anything that Sarah or I or Tanner talked about during this episode. And again, as always, we see the reviews coming in to iTunes and on Facebook and all that. So please keep those coming. And thank you guys so much, everybody who's left a review for us. That's really helping. And, it's not just a vanity thing. It's going to help get the podcast promoted and get it listened to by more people and get a bigger audience and more interaction and things like that. So again, thanks so much. I'm going to make it easy for you guys. If you can leave a review, just go to thinkingliberty.com/iTunes, and that will be the redirect that you need to get to click the star rating and leave a review for us and really help us out getting discovered. So that's it for this week. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to Thinking Liberty. Subscribe to the show for free on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher at thinkingliberty.com. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, articles by Zach and Sarah, and more. We'll see you next time.